Hello, friends, and welcome to Weekly Witness, Texas Impact's weekly podcast designed to help mainstream Texans of faith understand the legislative process and help you engage with public policy in the great state of Texas. My name is Scott Atnip, your host and Texas Impact's Director of Public Witness, and today we are recording from the Texas Capitol on a day when many of Texas Impact's priority bills are being heard or voted on. So make sure that you're following along with the weekly action alert and our rapid response notifications, because there is a lot going on even just today on reproductive health bills, elections, immigration, climate, and much more. You can learn more about that at texasimpact.org in the Action Center to make sure that you can follow along. But for today's conversation, we want to talk with a few friends and colleagues who are testifying in the Senate Committee on Business and Commerce regarding Senate Bill 819. Which is a great big regulatory bill that is anti-energy in a time where renewables are increasingly ensuring that Texas has enough energy to meet our growing demand. Senate Bill 819 would target the state's nation-leading renewable energy industry with some of the most far-reaching, cumbersome anti-business regulations that the legislature has ever contemplated. So we're going to jump right in to hear from three advocates who are preparing to testify before the committee in opposition to SB 819. Joining us for the conversation are Reverend Dr. Becca Edwards, policy advocate for Texas Impact, Adrian Shelley, Texas Director of Public Citizen, and Cheyenne Rendon with the Society of Native Nations. I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation. Hey friends, I'm particularly excited for this week's conversation because we are here in the Texas Capitol during a break of the Senate Business and Commerce Committee hearing with three friends. We have with us today Reverend Becca Edwards, Texas Impact's policy advocate working on climate issues. Becca, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here, Scott.
We have with us Adrian Shelley, friend of the program, who's been on here multiple times before. He is the Texas Director of Public Citizen. Adrian, thanks for being with us.
Good to be back.
And a new friend today, Cheyenne Rendon with the Society of Native Nations. Cheyenne, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the invite.
Y'all, we're here in the Capitol today because there is a lot going on. There's a lot of activity. It is certainly buzzing today. And one of the biggest bills that Texas Impact and our team are tracking are Senate Bill 819. For those who are on a rapid response team, you certainly got an email this week talking about the importance of this bill and the importance of making telephone calls. We wrote about it in our action alert this week, but wanted to give a little more color. So wanted to invite these three guests to talk about Senate Bill 819, why it's bad for business, why it's bad for energy, why it's bad for consumers, why it's bad for the climate, bad for lots of things. But let's talk about why that is. Adrian, starting with you, talk to us about Senate Bill 819, what's in it and why are you opposed?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So this is likely to be the biggest bill that we oppose this session, and it certainly was one of the biggest fights last session. What it looks like is a bill to provide more regulation and permitting to protect people and the environment. That's what it masquerades as. What it actually is an attack on clean energy sources, wind, solar, and battery storage. Senator Louis Kolkhorst out of the Hempstead area is purporting to be concerned about the impacts, for example, of wind turbines on neighbors. So she's proposed things like notice to affected parties, public comment, environmental impact reviews, fees to pay for environmental impact reviews, and on and on and on. You know, these are the kinds of things that in many contexts we would support, right? Public participation, limiting impacts to communities.
Good things. I like those.
Right. But what we're doing here really is we're targeting certain sources of energy, clean energy, wind, solar, batteries, with onerous regulations, not out of genuine concern for public health and the environment, but as a way to handicap those sources against sources that Senator Kolkhorst favors, namely oil, gas, coal.
And Becca, talk to us about what some of those restrictions are. Why would it harm the renewable sector?
So one of the provisions of the bill that I think is the most disingenuous is the requirement of a setback for new renewable generation of more than a half mile from any property line. So you can imagine that, you know, based on the size of a piece of property, this might completely prohibit any wind generation or solar generation from being installed in those locations. And the reason I say this is disingenuous is because there's no similar requirement on oil and gas infrastructure. Just in the last month or two, a permit was approved for 10 new fracking wells to be built in the city of Arlington, Texas, so not far from schools, daycares, and housing. So the setback of more than half a mile for new renewable generation is not in the interest of environmental quality.
Cheyenne, what kind of impact will this have?
Well, I believe that it's a violation of what Texas stands for. And if Texas is a leading state in the entire nation, it's a huge step back for clean energy, and it's a restricting on true property rights. So it's an infringement on self-governing of our own property rights with these establishments of restrictions on where you can apply your clean energy. So these violations are not just on a local level, but truly on a constitutional level.
Talk to us about, I know, when we start talking about regulations, a lot of people, including myself, like our eyes start to glaze over. But what kind of impact will this have on listeners? What kind of impact will this have on communities?
Yeah, so first of all, there's going to be a more onerous process to get permitted, right? You're going to have to provide notice to anybody who's affected within 25 miles. You're going to have a public meeting to take input. Again, there's a good idea, a public meeting, right? But if we're going to apply these kinds of requirements, they really ought to be applied across the board, right? I mean, yeah, there's going to be people who are concerned about a wind turbine farm going up around their property. They like their scenic views or whatever, right? But by the same token, there's people who are concerned that there are fracking wells going up in a city, right? The city of Arlington. So you're going to make the process more onerous. There's also some enduring things. There's a bonding requirement. Again, good idea in principle, right? Let's pay for decommissioning by putting up a bond at front. But this isn't a bond that other industries are required to do, right? So it makes it more expensive on the front end to build that wind farm or solar farm. Also, there's no vested right in the permit, which means that the agency, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, that's granted you your permit for your solar farm or your wind farm, they can change that permit or even take it away at any time. You don't have any vested right in that permit if Senate Bill 819 passes.
And if I could add one more thing, any reduction in the amount of renewables that we're able to build is ultimately going to raise energy costs, and it's going to make our grid less resilient. So this policy would definitely reduce the amount of wind and solar generation we're able to install. And we need every megawatt that we can get going forward to meet the increase in demand.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the thing I think people understand about this is Texas relies on renewables, and it helps keep our costs low, right? And so any effort to harm renewables would inevitably make energy more expensive. Am I reading that wrong?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the cheapest forms of energy now are wind and solar, right? It's been 4 years since Winter Storm Uri. 92% of the new energy that we've installed in those 4 years is wind, solar, and battery storage. If we're doing better today as a grid, it's because of the contribution that renewable energy is playing in our grid, right? We hear a lot about the all of the above strategy, right? Most of us concede that at least right now, gas is still part of the robust portfolio. There's nuke plants that are still going to be part of the portfolio, right? But an all of the above strategy should treat all sources fairly and equally, not pick winners and losers.
Love it. So I believe the three of you are testifying this afternoon. Is that real?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. And so kind of an awkward spot because I've got you before and not after, but let's get a preview. Cheyenne, what are you going to be talking about this afternoon to the committee?
If there's going to be regulations implemented on clean energy, then we should also be fair and start regulating not so clean energy, such as the petrochemicals and fossil fuel industry, which is a very high concentration, especially in low income communities of people of color, and most of the times, all of the time, those industries are impacting human health. So if we're going to be fair, let's be fair and start regulating them as well.
Let me ask you a follow up there. Like there are a lot of issues you could choose to focus on this legislative session. I know Adrian said this is like priority one for them. Why is this one so important to the Society of Native Nations?
Well, society is a voice for a lot of communities that don't have the opportunity or resources to come to the table and have these dialogues. A lot of the times, the communities that we're representing are not as well informed of what is truly happening. So for us to have this approach, we're reaching across these other communities that just plain outright are disproportionate, and underrepresented. And for us, we're trying to be equitable, not equal.
Right. Love that. All right. Becca, preview it for us.
Renewable energy benefits consumers, benefits the grid, benefits the future of Texas, and benefits rural landowners and communities. And restrictions on renewable energy makes us weaker going forward.
And Becca, you are wearing your clergy collar today. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on air, but you just came back from a retreat for your ordination, Reverend Becca Edwards. Why should the faith community in particular care about this?
Well, the faith community cares about a lot of issues that can be tied back to energy, including clean air, clean water. Energy prices especially affect marginalized communities, those who are already struggling. So we are interested in lowering energy costs in any way we can. Health impacts of oil and gas operations, including drilling, pipelines, everything, harm people as well. So we advocate for the right of each person to have a clean and healthy environment in which to thrive, and renewable energy is one of the paths forward.
Adrian, you said this was priority one, I believe you said a few minutes ago. Why?
Because it's the most pernicious attack on renewable energy that we will see in this legislature. There are a lot of efforts to hamstring renewable energy. They're in both chambers. We've heard a couple of bills in the House as well on this front. This is the one that the industry really fears, and this is the one that has the potential to have the most legs. We're public citizen. We're not promoters of one industry necessarily. The renewable industry has done great work in Texas, and they could stand up for themselves. They have a good authoritative voice here, right? But we are representative of the public's interest, public health, and in their rights to clean, reliable, affordable energy. And this bill isn't going to get us there.
Right.
I think we've heard some intel that Senator Colcourse might try to paint some of us as hippies or tree huggers, or that we have some sort of a green agenda here, as if that were a bad thing. I may be a hippie and a tree hugger in my spare time. With Public Citizen, I am an advocate for people, for consumers, and for policies that are good for the public and public health. So my message is going to be, we support regulations if they are targeting real problems that affect people's lives. There may be some wisdom in what's being done here if it's applied across industries that really create hazards in Texas. So let's get serious about protecting Texans. Let's not weaponize regulations, and let's be fair.
All right, homework time, friends. This episode will inevitably drop after the hearing has concluded, unless the hearing goes much longer than I think any of us are expecting. So homework post-hearing. Cheyenne, what do you hope listeners will do moving forward?
To get informed, get out there, speak with your elected officials, and have this conversation. Spread the true message of true solutions, not false solutions or miscommunicate or intentionally miscommunicated messages such as this bill.
Adrian, homework time. What do you got?
So we need to talk to the Senate now. This bill already passed the Senate last session. It's likely to pass again, but we need to show opposition. So we're going to start by contacting the members of the Business and Commerce Committee over the next week. Hopefully we have at least until Tuesday, maybe Thursday. After that, we're going to contact the entire Senate. We need votes against this bill on the Senate side so that when it gets over to the House, we can raise serious questions about whether this is good for Texans.
And that is currently, those telephone numbers are currently on Texas Impact's Action Alert on our Action Center page if you want names and numbers for that committee. Becca, homework time.
I will just echo what others have said. Be informed on the specifics of this bill. Get with your senators, and if in the event it passes the Senate, then turn to your House members and voice your opposition there.
We've got work to do, friends. We hope you'll take that seriously. Contact your friends. Make sure they're doing this work with you. Before we close out, I really do appreciate y'all taking the time today. I know it's a very busy day, and we're currently sitting in the Capitol in a hidden room. So I know this is a big deal for y'all, but I do want to give you a chance. Closing thoughts, shameless plugs. Cheyenne, anything you want to close out with or plug?
Thank you for your support. Even if it's just as far as sharing this message to others, every little effort is effort forward. So thank you.
Adrian, closing thoughts, shameless plugs?
Sure, yeah. Public Citizen is staying active on your behalf through the entire legislative session. You can find us online, citizen.org/Texas. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, and I'm told TikTok. Public Citizen TX.
Love that. Thank you. Becca.
Well, I will say one of the best ways to stay informed on energy and climate issues in the Texas legislature is to join the Climate Action Team. We meet weekly at 10 a.m. on Fridays on Zoom, talk about all the issues affecting energy and climate at the Texas legislature and maybe even some federal priorities as well. You can find out more information about that on the Texas Impact website, which is texasimpact.org.
Friends, Becca, Adrian, Cheyenne, thank you so much for your time today. I know it's a busy day. Good luck with your testimony this afternoon. We'll be watching.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation with Becca, Adrian, and Cheyenne, and I hope you'll all consider making some calls on this important topic. As a reminder, Texas Impact is posting a weekly action alert on the Action Center page at Texas Impact on our website, texasimpact.org, every Monday by noon. And added bonus, if you sign up for the Rapid Response Team, we'll email that directly to you and send you an invitation for a weekly Zoom with me and B to talk through it. And y'all, there are going to be a ton of updates coming in rapid fire succession in the coming weeks. So again, I hope you sign up for all of the things that Texas Impact has to offer. And if you're particularly interested in climate issues, I hope you'll do what Becca asked you to do, which is to sign up for our Climate Action Team on the Action Center page, or find the team that's most interesting to you. If you have questions about any of that or want to talk about how to get involved, please reach out at scott@texasimpact.org. While you're on the website, I hope you'll take a moment to sign up to be a member of Texas Impact. Your membership supports this podcast and all of the work to engage Texans of faith for a more just and equitable Texas. And y'all, before we go, I know I've said this the last couple of weeks, but I keep seeing news articles and hearing things about a measles outbreak in the state of Texas in 2025. So your weekly reminder, get your vaccinations and invite your friends to do the same. For goodness sake, y'all, it's 2025. We can do better than this. So with that, I think it's time we close out this episode. So remember, the world needs Texans of faith active and engaged. So let's get to work.
Weekly Witness is hosted by Scott Atnet, engineered and produced by David Fasalo. Our executive producer is B. Moorhead. The opinions expressed on Weekly Witness are those of Texas Impact and our guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Weekly Witness is a product of Texas Impact, people of faith working for justice. Visit us online at texasimpact.org.